folks, Dave the Bartender here again with another update on my pre-heresy world eaters. As I've mentioned in a couple of my videos, I had a tournament about a month ago, so I finished off about 1,250, 1,500 points or so of my world eaters, and so I've got a whole bunch of stuff which hasn't been on the channel yet, and I wanted to get a couple of updates done this weekend while I'm procrastinating on finishing off some university assignments. These updates are probably going to be my last for about a month or so. I've got all my finals due, but after mid-November I should be able to get a lot more content up. Hopefully I've got a new camera coming soon as well, which will make things an awful lot easier. So first up today I've got my 5-man Terminator squad. They're using shoulder pads from Maxi Mini, as well as green stuff work on the leather skirts, some converting and things like that. So I'll take you through in detail close up in just a sec. So first up we have the captain, or sergeant as I tend to use him in most games. He's armed with a power sword and storm bolter. Now I think I got the magazines from Anvil Industries, the drum mags, but I can't remember to be honest because it was a long time ago. And then what I've done is I've built up the twin length bolter just using a regular Space Marine bolter, which has then been bulked out with some plastic art and given a second barrel to give that sort of over-under look, which sort of is a bit more pre-heresy style than standard storm bolters. The model is the old metal Space Marine Terminator Captain, which I then cut the legs out and replaced with the new plastic ones, just because the old model's not really to scale anymore. So it was a bit of a pain in the ass. It's not very often that I have to work with metal models these days, but pretty happy with how it turned out. So these are the two regular Terminators in the squad. The skirts were made out of green stuff, and then I used a mechanical pencil to give the riveted look. And then the model on the left, I green stuffed the World Eaters emblem on the greave as well, and they've had some top knots added from the Chaos Space Marine box set. And again, they've got the same over-under style bolt guns, and then a little bit of green stuff work to do skulls and things onto the bolt guns as well. And then the two special weapons Terminators, we've got one armed with a Cyclone missile launcher and one with a chain fist. In the chain fist model, the storm bolter arm has been magnetised, so I can swap out other weapons options such as heavy flamers, assault cannons, auto cannons and the like. The Cyclone missile launcher guy, I've done some green stuff work to give some sort of chainmail skirts hanging down from his shoulder pads, and then both models have been heavily damaged with some bullet marks and scorching and things on their armour. Now the Cyclone missile launcher, it doesn't quite come out in the focus, but on the top of the model I've heavily weathered it with the Forge World soot weathering powders, just to show where the basically where the dirt and grime would build up on the model after firing off the missiles just above his head. So that's a lot more heavily weathered than the other guys. And for throughout the whole squad I've used Anvil Industries Forge Ruin bases, which on the 40mm base look awesome because there's a bit more detail on them. And here we have my first Devastator squad. So it consists of a sergeant with a bolt gun, one marine with a Signum and Auspex, and then 3 marines with the Forge World missile launchers. So we'll go in for a closer look. So the sergeant is in Mark II Crusade armour, and then the helmet I added the crest from the standard bearer's helmet on the Mark IV command set. It's got one of the Forge World pattern bolters. I think it's the Omega or the Ultimate, I can't remember off the top of my head. Now the pointing finger, I've resculpted that onto a regular bolt pistol hand, and then the model's finished off with a cloak from Anvil Industries. So like most of my work is very heavily weathered. It's got a lot of weathering powders on the bottom edge of the cloak. It doesn't quite come out in the video. Next up is the Marine armed with the Signum and the Auspex. So this is the squad leader in regular games. However, when I'm using the Space Wolf Codex, I tend to put a Wolf Guard battle leader in as well. So I made the Signum out of the sight from a regular las cannon, and then added the Auspex as well, which has got a little bit of a sort of targeting pattern on it. And then for the backpack I used the post-heresy las cannon power pack, and then just swapped out the vents for a couple which I've done. And then I think the legs on this model were from the Khorne Berserker unit, which I've then just resculpted down into the kneeling pose, and then it's finished off with a Phobos pattern bolter, which is just underslung. And then the 3 missile launcher Marines using the Forge World sort of shark pattern missile launcher, and then I've done a sort of shark's tooth motif around the muzzle of the missile launcher, heavily weathered with weathering powders. I've used a combination of different parts, some from the Space Marine Command box set for the kneeling legs, and then just some regular Tactical Marine parts, which I've then just added in a couple of more pre-heresy style helmets and a little bit of sculpting work on some of the chest pieces and stuff, just to bring it into that pre-heresy feel without buying too much of the Forge World parts, just using what I have. So I'm really happy with how these turned out. The shark tooth motif was a bit hard to do, but looks absolutely awesome, and it's something I'm going to be carrying on to the rest of the heavy weapons for the army. And then we have a 10-man tactical squad with 2 plasma guns and bolt guns, and then the sergeant has a double-handed chain axe. So this is mostly Mark II armour, and then I've done a few helmet swaps with helmets from Maximini and from the Chaos Marine box set. So first up for this squad is its sergeant. So he's been made using the legs from a plastic Warrior of Chaos from the Fantasy range, which I've then green stuffed out to make into power armour, and then he's been given the company company champion shoulder pads from the Command Squad box set, some extra pieces from Mark II Forge World, like the backpack and so on, and then he has an extended length chain axe which I've made from the Forge World chain axe, as well as some parts from a Chaos Warrior halberd. So if you see on the back, it will show how I've sculpted in with green stuff the power armour on the back of the legs, and then I've sort of incorporated a little bit of hanging chainmail and things around the holster and grenades and stuff. So the helmet on this model is from Maximini. It's one of their Gladiator range. Now I had to bulk it out because it's not really to Space Marine scale. It's probably more suited to Guardsmen or Fantasy, so the helmets are a little bit small when you put them on a Space Marine. So I've just bulked out around the top of it with some green stuff just to give it a bit more weight to it. So it works as a nice sort of big hulking sergeant for the squad. We have 2 plasma gun Space Marines, and I've gone for a slightly different glow technique to what I used originally on my Khan model, and I've now gone back and repainted him as well. So it's just using layers of blended green to build up the glow effect on both the coils and on the little vents just before the muzzle. So I like this one a lot better than the one I was using before, which came out a little bit pink, which didn't quite suit the Space Marines. And as you'll see on all my models, I've freehanded the pre-heresy World Eater's symbol. Now I know that it's now changed in the new Horus Heresy Betrayal book, but I prefer this style, and I'm not going to go through and repaint my whole army with the new sort of ring teeth. I don't really like it. So. And these are some of the regular Tactical Marines. As you can see, it's a mixture of Forge World parts and parts from the Chaos Space Marine box set. Some of the helmets and arms and stuff from that box set work really well once you remove the sort of Chaos iconography, and it adds to a little bit more variety. Now I've done quite a bit of reposing on some of the legs, just using the hot water technique to again add that little bit more variety to the squad. And then these guys are from the tactical squad I use as Khan's bodyguard. So the whole squad's been done in the Mark III iron armour, because I wanted them to look like they were sort of the forlorn hope, that first squad which goes through the breach to massacre as much as they can before they get taken down. So the heavier armour style suits that, and I think it's a toss-up between the Mark II and the Mark III, out of which is my favourite of the Forge World kits. So I've used some helmets from Maximini here, as well as from the Chaos Warrior box set, just with some icons and stuff removed, and then the Sergeant's been given a power sword. So the other thing which I've changed in the squad is you'll see that I've used the heads from the Forge World chain axes, but not the handles and the hafts. That's because the small, thin resin handles on them are very, very flexible and fragile, so they tend to bend under their own weight, which wasn't really the look I was going for. So most of the hands I've used for this squad actually come from the Fantasy Chaos Warrior box set, or from the Chaos Marine box set, and I've just cut the weapon hand out of the Forge World pieces and slotted in the new one, and then just tidied it up with green stuff. So most of the weapon handles you see here are actually from either the Marauder kit or the Chaos Warrior kit, just because they're plastic and they're a bit more sturdy. So that tends to be a lot better than those little flimsy Forge World ones. And then we've got one more alternative Sergeant here, armed with a Power Fist, on which I've green stuffed the World Eaters logo again. And both the Sergeant and the man to his left are using helmets from the Fantasy Chaos Warrior set, which has some really good sort of pre-heresy style, sinister looking helmets. And then my third tactical squad, this one's been done primarily using the Chaos Space Marine box set, and I just wanted to show what you can do in order to make pre-heresy style models with only a little bit of converting and without using too many Forge World parts. So what I've done on the majority of these is just pick out the sort of Mark IV styled chess pieces from either tactical squads or from the Chaos Marine set, and use a combination of those with some Forge World helmets and just a little bit of green stuff and converting work to go back to a pre-heresy style. So the backpacks on all these models are simply from the Chaos Space Marine box set, and all that I've done is I've trimmed them down on the vents to get rid of those extended vents, and then just glued the vents back into place, because it sort of comes down to a nice sort of Mark IV-esque older looking style backpack without too much work. And then I've just done a little bit of green stuffing work on the knee pads just to take it back to that Mark IV style. So again, I've used a variety of helmets, some Mark IVs, some Mark II, and then some of the Maximini Steam Knights helmets in there as well. Now the model on the far left was my first attempt at green stuffing Mark II legs. It's come out slightly off scale, it's a little bit fat. Next time I know to trim the power armor down a little bit, which I then sculpt the Mark II armor on top of, because otherwise it sort of comes out like this model, which I like to think of him as sort of the MC Hammer parachute pants tactical marine. But it's not too hard to sculpt, and it's something which I've done a few more times since then, and it's come out a lot nicer. You just have to be careful about how thick you make the layers, otherwise you get parachute pants going on. So yeah. And so here's the rest of the squad here. Again, I've used some Maximini helmets in here, a lot of green stuff work on some of the models, especially the model on the far left. It was my first attempt to sculpt Mark II style power armor, and I did that over top of regular plastic power armor legs, so it's come out a little bit fat, what I sort of think of as the sort of MC Hammer parachute pants style power armor. So it's something which in future versions I've trimmed the armor down a lot more before I've done the green stuff sculpting on top, just to stop it from sort of ballooning out the way it has. But as one model out of the squad, I don't think it looks too bad. And this is just one of my extra heavy weapons troopers, so he's armed with the Chaos Space Marine heavy bolter, and then some Forge World parts on top of regular Chaos Marine parts. So what I found with making my tactical squads, I think I bought 20 sets of various different marks of Forge World armour and made about 30 or 35 Marines from them all up, just mixing them in with Chaos Space Marine parts and Tactical Marine parts. So that's the approach I tend to do, or I'm going to be doing moving forward as well. It's just using those more expensive Forge World parts just to add on some more details to regular Marines, to put them into that pre-heresy style, so it doesn't end up costing me an arm and a leg to do the whole army. So I'm quite happy with how they turn out. Gives a little bit more variety in there as well, as there's only a limited amount of variation between the Forge World sculpts. So moving forward, I've got a couple of Dreadnoughts that I've been working on. I'll just grab the Contemptor. So I've got a Mortis pattern Contemptor with the 2 Keras pattern assault cannons. Now I've done a little bit of green stuffing work on the greaves of the Contemptor just to bring it in line with the new World Eaters Contemptor which they were showing at Games Day. So I've done a more elaborate version of the emblem on its knee pad, and the other thing I did with these is I didn't really like the resin barrels which came with the model, so I've replaced them with brass rod just to have it a bit more stable and to stop them from warping the way the resin tends to. And then the Contemptor's little brother, so this is very much a work in progress on the painting side of things, but I've finished off all the building work on this model. So the legs have been heavily reposed, and then I've resculpted the power cables and such. I need to tidy them up a little bit, and then I'm going to do some fuel leaks and so on. And then the model's festooned with resin skulls which are hanging off strips of razor wire, just to show the slightly more aggressive and chaotic nature of the World Eaters Dreadnoughts and some of the fluff that I've been reading. The Dreadnoughts are some of the first ones to turn to corn. And then on the chain fist here, I wanted something a little bit different, so I've used the standard Dreadnought power fist as a base, replaced the fingers with the chain blades from the bolt gun sets from Forge World, and then added some resin ammo belts, and then completely rebuilt the sort of extending mechanism on the fist because I wanted it to look a little bit longer, that it could actually reach down and hit people on the ground rather than the Dreadnought sort of angrily swinging his shoulders at people. And then as you see on the back, I've got some more chains hanging off razor wire and stuff around. So I'm looking forward to seeing this bad boy once he's fully painted up. I'm not sure if you'll ever see any gameplay, considering that the Contemptor works a lot better, but it's a fun thing to do. So yeah, that's about it for today, guys. As I said, it's probably going to be a little while before I get any new updates up. I've got about 10,000 words of assignments or so to finish off in the next 3-4 weeks. But once that's done, I will then have completed my BA. So I'll be back into working full time. I'll have a little bit more money, which is always a good thing for the hobby. So yeah, and I'll just give you a quick little preview on the other project that I've been working on. As Templars Crusade would call it, it is the Evil Square Base. This is a Mantic Undead army that I'm working on for Kings of War. This is going to be next year's project. Just give me something which is a little bit different from 40k, and I'll be trying to use some of the weathering techniques and so on that I've been using on my 40k models and introduce them to fantasy, which is something in my area no one's really tried to do. So there's going to be a lot of rusting, mould, things like that on the models, so I'm very much looking forward to bringing it to you guys. And so yeah, thanks for watching, and bear with me for the next little month or so while my content's a little bit diminished, and cheers.